Oh, welcome everyone to the Right to Counsel for Tenants. Excuse me. This is part one of our political education workshop series on the right to counsel for tenants. This is created by Organizing Power in Numbers. So let's go ahead. There's going to be a lot of exciting information. First and foremost, my name is Michelle, and I'm a leader in the organizing committee for the Take Back Our Homes campaign. But we're going to have a lot of exciting information today and important discussions. So,
Andy Eldon has joined the meeting. Audio.
Got it? Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so who are we? Oh, there we go. So who are we? We are Organized Power in Numbers. We're a nonprofit in building worker power on the ground in our different campaigns to stop temporary work exploitation, to win good union jobs for green energy in Texas, and to secure dignified housing for working families in Arizona, here in Arizona. Arizona, along with the rest of the South, currently is facing systematic exploitation from corporations as the last place where they can continue to do so. And so we organize primarily in the South and Southwest of the United States. The Take Back Our Homes campaign began in 2022 in response to the mass and unjust evictions and displacement of our communities. We're building power as poor and working class communities so that everyone can have a roof over their head by creating a system that guarantees safe and dignified housing for all Arizonans. We believe that housing is a human need and not a commodity. Next slide, please. I'm just going to go over a brief overview of what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to hear poetry by Trinity Miracle. She's an amazing local artist. We're going to talk about the history of racial discrimination in housing and where that's led us to today. After that, we're going to do an activity and talk about the human cost of eviction. Following that, Victor, one of our leaders in our organizing committee, will share his personal experience with eviction. Then we will talk about what the right to counsel is. Following, we will be doing a vision activity led by Sebastian, following with a breathing exercise before doing our closing of the presentation. I also want to share some community guidelines for this workshop. So part of the presentation today will require some interactive portions, like the visioning activity and the breathing exercise. It's important to know that we learn from each other, and so we do want to hear from all of you, and we ask that you please do contribute in the spaces where we ask for everyone's participation. Unmuting yourself if asked to speak, and then writing in the chat down in the menu below when asked for your opinions or comments or questions. Our chat moderator is going to be capturing all the questions and comments. So don't worry if if your question has not been addressed, somebody is following that, and we will get to you, if not at the Q&A at the end of the presentation, but if not, by following up with you so that we can get everyone's questions and comments addressed. Stay on time. We are going to ask that we may ask you to wrap up your thought. Please understand we do not do this for any other reason than we are trying to be respectful of everyone's time. We understand everybody set time aside for tonight's presentation. So please make sure just to try and mind the time, as we do want to be respectful for everybody's time and make sure that we get through the entire presentation today, as there's a lot of information to go over. And with that, also feel free just to utilize the chat at any time to share your thoughts. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can, there is the option to just comment or question to the organizers and not to everybody in the chat. With that, I'm going to pass it on. Oh, and just a reminder, as I apologize, this presentation is being recorded. If you do not feel comfortable being recorded, you're welcome to turn your camera off, but just so that everybody knows. Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and pass this on to Karina for the next portion.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle, for leading that welcome and introducing us. I now want to take a minute to introduce Trinity Miracle. It's such an honor to have them here today with us. And so Trinity Miracle uses she, they pronouns. They are a young, Black, queer, interdisciplinary artist creating captivating and radical statements through spoken word, poetry, and performance art. She flexes a dreamy yet honest storytelling that exists through all of her work, centering the Black experience in all artistic manifestations. She earned a spot on Next Gen America's 30 Around 30 Young Black Changemakers list of 2022. Trinity's art is a testament on how storytelling can be a tool to make change in communities. And this is honestly like the best way to start off this event because there's a lot of elements of storytelling in this event. And she will also be leading a land acknowledgement. And so with that, I will now pass it over to Trinity.
Thank you so much, Karina. Welcome, everyone. You could be anywhere at all today, and I'm just so glad to be able to share virtual space with you all. I know we got some folks from Phoenix, but I decided let's go ahead and lead this land acknowledgement because we are crossing zip codes, we are crossing land, we are crossing borders, and I want to ground the space. Phoenix sits on the ancestral homelands of indigenous tribes that have inhabited this land for centuries, including O'odham and Peeposh Maricopa peoples. As we share virtual space together, we are connected beyond zip codes, beyond land, and beyond borders. By acknowledging the land we reside on, we acknowledge the history and legacy of colonialism that has displaced people, and that we are all connected to it and continue to benefit that legacy through our occupancy of these lands. As we talk about displacement today, it is important to acknowledge the structures that have created and fueled this displacement. I will also drop actually a little resource in case anyone's curious, if you're not from Phoenix, which indigenous land you reside on. I know sometimes Zoom doesn't let you copy and paste links, but hopefully that is a helpful resource for anyone who's curious. And now this is my piece titled Evicted. That is the sound of the landlord banging on my bedroom window, ready to evict me, my single mother, my eldest sister. There I lay, 15, home alone, head tucked under thick layers of blankets, hiding from the... There it goes again. Make it stop, make it stop. A thick hello bounces off brick walls and cold floors, quiet enough to hear toes pop, until I get the courage to meet the man, ready to evict me, my single mother, my eldest sister. So there I stand, 15, a plethora of questions being shot at me. Why didn't you open the door? I was asleep, I'm home alone, I'm 15. His jaws unclenches, his shoulders relax, his eyebrows wearing empathy well. I'm asked to wait outside until my mother gets home, except that when she gets home, it is no longer her home, but a cemetery, headstones like tally marks, only one too many times I cried when no one was watching. Like that time in the extended stay, Mom and I were waiting for the call most would celebrate for. Did we get the apartment? No, sweetie. So there I lay, 16, alone, this time sheets thrown across the room, legs kicking air, arms crushing pillows, and screams the shower water was just loud enough not to hear. My mother might have cried too that night, letting the water run past the salt in her eyes. I explained to a friend over the phone what it's like to lose hope. I blamed myself instead of a system that bared shackles, a student loan to pay, rent to afford, but a belly left hollow. And here I stand, afraid that at any time, history can repeat itself because it has proven itself one too many times before. Thank you. It's an honor to be able to share a little bit of my eviction story, and this is the safest, most bravest space I could be able to share that in. So thank you all for having me and being a part of the story.
Good. Gracious. That was just beautiful, darling. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Miss Catherine. That's the perfect segue. I now want to introduce you, Miss Catherine. She has
Oh,
been,
I'm up next. Okay.
yes, ma'am. Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. All right. Well, let's roll with it, baby. Let's roll with it.
She has been a leader in the organizing committee for Take Back Our Homes since 2022. She is a loved and respected elder in the community, and we are very excited to have her. Everybody drop some heart emoji reactions and some flowers in the chat. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. You guys are my family, and I feel good about each one of you. This topic, as I say over and over again, is something that is so dear to my heart because I lived it. Being of brown skin, nothing ever came easy. Nothing did. Not even getting a drink of water, but we won't go down that route. So I'm just going to tell you where we are going to go. I'm 64. I was raised here, born and raised here in Phoenix, Arizona. What I'd like to do is take you guys on a little journey with me. I like for everyone to close their eyes and just accept this journey like you're part of it, so that you can see or go through what we went through growing up. Back in the 50s and 60s was still hard to make a way for a single person or a family, especially if you were of color. I really want to take you all back in time so that you guys can feel what everybody went through, because it's still going on. Mark my word. You know, history is repeating itself. When they came into the redlining, they made this. So, I mean, it's exactly what we experienced as being Black, Latino, Oriental, was that, you know, the purple was the section that even reached out to Scottsdale, that was doing a good job. And that's for whites. I'm going to tell you that right now. Even if you were of color and made good money, you still could not buy a house in the purple section. Okay. My mother, being of Caucasian descendant, she was told blatantly, we can't sell the house to you because you have brown babies and your husband is brown. So you know, they said Negro, I'm sorry, Negro. And we cannot give this to you at all. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't do it because the neighborhood would not accept it. And to this day, it's the same thing. It's still going on. Yellow is the projects. Matthew Henson and Marco. If you ever get a chance to go down there and see this, it's amazing. And the redlining is the less desirable of all. It is just very poor standing. Unfortunately, I don't pick these words. These are words that have been picked. They for white trash, which is wrong to be called that whatsoever. But that's how they diagnose everybody in housing. I spoke to Professor, is it Baze? Did I say that right? Karina?
Professor Shabazz. Yeah.
Oh, good Lord, Shabazz. We talked quite a bit of him, and the thing that gets me is that the loan, they made it very difficult for people of color to obtain loans. The percentage was high, and the piece of property, like we bought our house, first house on Watkins Road, it didn't even have a floor. It didn't even have windows. And we paid $5,000. Well, my mother paid $5,000 for it. So it doesn't matter if history, again, like I said, is repeating itself. The doctor gave us a lot of input. We try to build wealth. That's one thing that we're taught. Buy land, get a house, that's part of the American dream. Well, the American dream did not include people of color. It just didn't. Our interest rates were high. And the loan was foreclosed. If you missed one payment, they foreclosed. Whereas if with whites, they were given a good percentage. Plus, they were worked on. They would work with them. So if they got a little behind their loan, no problem, we'll work for you. But if you're of color, they would say, well, if you can't come up with it in the next 10 days, you're going to lose your home. We moved right when we bought our house in Watkins Road. We moved across the street from the city dump. I mean, dump. Everything is being dumped over there. So everything went through the dirt into the water. That's how I got lupus and my brothers got MS. Then the city buses, they leased out the place where they could park all their buses. So we're smelling the fumes in the air. Okay. We were sick all the time. Going to school, we were sick all the time. The food at the school was no good. Just to tell you a little bit about the history of this, and we were drinking water because they out the pipes, because the water was the same thing, the poison. And then there was Maryvale. I don't know if any of you guys know about the Maryvale housing. Cancer, tumors, leukemia, all of that, cancer. Once families thought of color thought that they were getting somewhere with buying a new house. Oh my God, new house in Maryvale. It was a death trap to them. Even the hospital was a death trap. It was poison. Our children were getting sicker. Elderly people were getting sicker, dying. And you couldn't sell your home because now you're labeled as having cancer. You're a death trap. So nobody would want to buy it over there. The only thing that gave some people sort of leverage was that they decided to expand the airport, Sky Harbor. So they would come in.
Miss Catherine, just your halfway check right now for you.
Okay, thank you, baby. They would come in and tell you, okay, we're gonna pay you $70,000 for that land. And he said, well, I want to think about it. They said, no, because if you don't sign it right now, when I come back, we're going to offer you $20,000. And sometimes they could get away with not paying any money for it. They just say, this is a takeover by the city and tough luck. I live this, and I'm going to tell you something. We say we won the discrimination, but in fact, we still working on discrimination. Because they're still saying that you have to make so much money a month, more a month, and that they raised the rent. I mean, I went through that. I was bullied. We're going to raise your rent $400 more. How do you think I'm going to come up with $400 extra a month? And they said, well, if you can't do it, then you got to move. That's bullying right there. And when you say discrimination, they do it so well that where no one can tell that they're doing it discrimination unless you're in the seat, unless one of you guys need our help or we need you guys' help. That's how they will come and find out about that. Okay, it's discrimination there. The fluctuation of house buying went up and down, up and down, up and down. But for whites, it just went straight across. There was no up and down. It was leveled out. So I ask you all, with history repeating itself, where do we go from here? I know we have to fight, and I'm okay with that. Bring it on. I'm ready to fight. But you guys are the younger generation of my generation. And I want to do everything that I can do to help secure that this doesn't keep on going on. We have to fight this tooth and nail. Because I'm going to tell you, if it don't, it'll be repeating history with you all. And that is not something that you want to happen. That you look around and you wonder, where am I going to go live today? What am I going to do? I mean, it should not be certain rules for Scottsdale and certain rules for us. For down south. Because I'm going to tell you something. Really, don't nobody want to buy a house down south. And if you think you're going to get a house down south and flip it, you'd be surprised that nobody's going to buy your house unless it's really cheap. This is really, really cheap. So I'm thankful to you all, and just know that I'm here to help you in any kind of way that I can. Because if you guys don't get a house, who's going to secure it for your children, your nieces, your nephews? This is not right. Thank you for letting me, and come on back home. I know I said apologize. Come on back. And, thank you so much for everything. How did I do?
You did amazing, Miss Catherine. Thank you so much for shedding so much light on the fight for housing and going into this history. This is a history of housing in Phoenix, and we need to talk about this to look at the current situation,
Yes.
right? In order to understand the current situation.
Yes.
Because the system was designed and it was built on discrimination and built on inequality, and that's what we're seeing still today, right? Is Black
Yes.
and brown folks are renters. There are a lot of renters, and it's because we weren't given the opportunity to build generational wealth the way other wealthy white folks were through the redlining system. So thank you so much, Miss Catherine. You put it so beautifully. So thank you so much, and show Miss Catherine some love with some reaction emojis and in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Can I just say one more thing?
Yes, of course.
This is what I found out. Me and the professor, I was looking at what he wrote. None of the said lots, that's the land, nor any part therefore shall be leased, let, sold, or transferred to or occupied by anyone who is, or if married, whose spouse is, or the member of whose immediate family, or of other than white and Caucasian race. And this exclusion shall include persons having perceptible strains of the aesthetic Mexican Indian, American Indian, Negro, Filipino, or Hyundai races. It's being understood, however, that this provision shall not interrupt to prevent the occupancies as such by dynamic servant employed by an owner or tenant occupying the property.
Thank you
This
so much.
is sad.
Yeah.
This is sad, Karina. This is sad what they're saying. If you're of all them races, they don't know. They don't sell to you. So I just thought you guys would like to hear that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
What Miss Catherine just read is an actual blurb of a covenant that was written into a home deed in 1948 in Maricopa County. And so this was very explicitly racist. And that's right here on the left top corner of the slide. Thank you so much for highlighting that. With that being said, we're going to go into this first activity. And so I'm Karina. I'm a digital organizer with the Take Back Our Homes campaign at Organized Power in Numbers. For this activity, I'm going to invite folks to share about your own experiences, either if you've dealt with an eviction or been threatened with one, or if your housing has been insecured because of external factors, what happened in that situation, you know, like, did you have legal representation if you did face an eviction? And so I would love to have a conversation here, but unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time. And so one of my colleagues is actually going to drop a link to our Jamboard in the chat, and I'm going to demonstrate how to use this tool. And so here on the screen is a screenshot of what the Jamboard looks like. And now I'm going to open the link right here. So once you're on the Jamboard, once you click the link, you should be seeing this displayed on your screen. And in order to add part of your story, in order to answer part of this question, go to the left side of the screen where it says sticky note. And so it's the fourth image down, and it's a little square. So when you click the sticky note, this square will now appear on your screen. So if you're in this process, go ahead and give me a thumbs up so I know folks are following along here. So when this sticky note shows up, you can go ahead and type in your answer to the question. And so I'm gonna, I've never been through an eviction, but I constantly fear it because of the increasing housing prices. And so I would add that here. And then everyone's sticky notes will appear on the screen. And so I'm gonna give folks 2 to 3 minutes to go ahead and add their responses and share as much as they're comfortable with here on the screen. And if you're having trouble accessing this tool, go ahead and drop it in the chat and I will add part of your story. And you can remain anonymous as well. You don't have to put your name on the sticky note.
Okay. You know, many times back in the time, can you hear me?
Yes.
Many times, so that this was one of the underhanded ways that they would do it. They wouldn't put on there that you were evicted. Back in the day, they would just say, person changed their mind. And you don't know that unless you look up on your credit score. Because for many years, I can't remember how many years, but for many years, people of color did not get a credit score. Can you believe that? You did not have a credit score. Because they found out that people of color handle their credit a lot different than white people. They are Caucasian people. People of color really worked hard to keep their credit at a good level. You see what I'm saying? Whereas if Caucasian people would just go out there and spend whatever they want to spend and this and that and everything. So I was amazed at that. It didn't surprise me. I was just amazed.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much for everyone who's being vulnerable and sharing what they've gone through, adding things that folks are sharing in the chat. I know some folks are driving or getting to where they're going, or might have a little bit trouble in navigating this tool. And so I'm gonna read some of the sticky notes. So I have experienced eviction and I always fear it. Eviction is not my grievance. My issue is the contracts we are required to sign in order to rent an apartment. I believe they are partly illegal, yet you have to sign it. Yeah, they're binding and they can be very predatory if you don't know how to read the contract, or you don't have other options because housing is so hard to find. Driving, but I have experienced and always fear it. I was evicted and had no legal representation. I am now going through this. 30-day notice is never enough. I have experienced eviction. I have been homeless with and without children. But I was a little girl, but I was old enough to understand how scared my parents were. They requested us to leave in less than 2 weeks.
Wow.
In my childhood apartment, 6 of us were living in a 1-bedroom in order to make rent in New Jersey. Rent was always looming over us every month. This was in 2009.
Mm, mm.
Thank you all so much for sharing and being vulnerable. I think in all of these experiences, we can really see a connection, right? Is the
Mhm.
system right now is not working for us. And I mean, what we just talked about with the history lesson is it wasn't meant to work for us, but we have to fight for it to bend to work for us because it is our system, right? It's our government that's supposed to be representing us. And so we want to make sure that we build the world that we believe we should be living in. So thank you so much for everyone who participated. I think I'm running a little close to my time here, and so I'm gonna give just one more minute, add last thoughts, last feelings, and then I'm now gonna introduce our next speaker, which will be Victor, and he is
Could you
driving, so.
correct? I'm not feeling very well. I'm gonna get offline if it's okay
Yeah,
with you guys.
of course, I'll check in with you right after. Thank you,
God
Miss.
bless you guys. Take care, okay? And I'll talk to you guys next week.
Bye, Miss
Thank you for
Catherine.
everything. Love you guys.
Bye. Okay.
There's also some new comments coming in.
Do I go now or?
Yeah, give me 1 second. So we're gonna try to capture all of those comments and questions that are coming into the chat. We have to move over to the next section. And so I do want to introduce Victor Montoya. He grew up as an Army brat and lived in Germany, Colorado, Washington State, and lastly, Arizona. He's a computer hacker by trade, and he was evicted in retaliation by his former landlord for attempting to form a tenants union in his building. And he's a leader in our organizing committee currently in the Take Back Our Homes campaign. And so I'll pass it over to Victor.
Yeah, thank you. What triggered the my organizing was that there was a kind of like an occupation by the U.S. Marshals. There was about not 50, but 20 U.S. Marshals and another like 30 sheriffs, a couple of mobile command centers, and they just came in and they didn't explain what they were doing, but they were searching for someone. Later on, it came out in the news that they were there to arrest a child predator, but to have that many law enforcement personnel, there was definitely more going on, and we believe that the landlord knew it. In addition to that, around COVID, around the end of COVID, we started to see extreme rent increases in our lease renewals, as much as 40, 50, and sometimes even 100%. Mine was close to 80%. So we were going from $700 a month to, in my case, like it would have been like 13 or 12, yeah, about $1,300 to $1,400, almost double. In a single yearly lease, the landlord that purchased our apartment, they were called Third Avenue Investment, and they prided themselves on what they call turnover. Essentially, they one way or another de facto evicted everyone out of the properties they purchased. They would remodel everything and then put the properties back on the market at much higher rent, and then sell to another investor and then move on. They were extremely aggressive, uncompromising attack on anybody there. Even if you could pay the rent, the newly increased rent, like I could, they wanted you out of the unit. They had a process and they wanted to follow it. So I attempted to organize, and I went out with another organizing group called Worry About Rent. And we canvassed on a Saturday, and the very next day I was given a 10-day notice for a lease violation. In Arizona, these 10-day notices carry a little bit more power because they use a legal loophole. Essentially, the 10-day notice for a lease violation can skip the 30-day notice that normally is required for an eviction. The law was originally intended for people, for landlords needing to evict people who were setting up like meth labs or hoarding. doing things that were endangering the health and safety of other people. But landlords figured out in the valley that they could use it to evict anybody that they didn't want over minor lease violations. And I went to eviction court. I lost my case, but I did have legal representation from a very good, seasoned lawyer. Unfortunately, he was a criminal defendant lawyer, so he wasn't quite as well versed in eviction laws as my landlord's attorney was, but he was still a very, very effective attorney. He appealed it, and the appeal, because because it was such a very clearly a case of retaliation for organizing the tenants union. And in Arizona, there is one single statute that does protect very broadly tenant union organizing. The original judge that heard my eviction case, though, said that because they hadn't formed a tenants union yet, that law didn't apply to me. In addition, I failed to notify the landlord that I was organizing. So as long as there was no proof that the landlord had noticed, legal proof that they were in the clear, and they very much like to use this. They're not required by Arizona to state the reason why they're evicting you. It just can't be an unlawful reason. So as long as they don't say it's for a racial reason or another unlawful reason, as long as they essentially just don't say why they're evicting you, it's perfectly lawful, even if it's very clearly, in my case, retaliation or racial discrimination or gender discrimination or sexual orientation discrimination. But the reason why this attorney took on my case, he spent about 200 hours fighting this case for me, is that we were trying to set a precedent. In my case, I could have just left. I wasn't in a normal situation where, I was going to wind up unhoused. I could have paid the higher rent. If I didn't feel like this could have led to a legal precedent, I would have probably just taken the 30-day notice and left and just call it a day, just called it a loss. But this attorney and I both believe that if we could win this case, it would set a legal precedent on what defines retaliation in Arizona, because unfortunately, no one has actually attempted to try to use this law to fight a landlord in a case of retaliation of tenant organizing. And since my case was strong and I had a good attorney, it took the appeals court an entire year to finally rule against me. And the reason why that was because, again, the Arizona court is just so really biased against tenants. And they didn't want to set a legal precedent. They didn't want to give me a win. So their ruling was extremely narrow, and it just tortured the statute like to a ridiculous degree. But anyways, I did essentially lose. So that is my story. And I think even though I did lose, I still was able to stay there for an entire year at the lower rental rate. And I think even though again I lost, I think it still shows like how much of a difference having an attorney makes in an eviction hearing. Because I had an attorney, I was able to appeal my case and at least try to fight the landlord and this injustice. Oftentimes, 99% of the time, especially in Arizona, there is no attorney, and it makes a huge case. Just having an attorney can just on its own can cause the landlord to open up negotiations with you. So I'll just turn it over to Andrea now to explain more on the right to an attorney.
Yeah, thank you so much for your story, Victor. And Victor's just one example of, how many we can fight, but at the end of the day, like in the justice system, having representation does make a big difference. And we've seen that and we know that. So, okay, I'll wait for the slides to start. By the way, everyone, my name's Andrea Luna. I'm a community organizer here with Organized Power in Numbers. But yeah, thank you again, Victor. So what is a right to counsel? We describe it as a national movement to make sure to keep families in their homes and protect renters' due process by ensuring that every person who is facing an eviction is assigned to an attorney to represent them in their case. But specifically, it means that an individual has the right to be represented by an attorney during an eviction proceeding, much like in criminal cases where you're assigned a public defender if anything happens. And just to share a statistic with y'all in Maricopa County, 94% of landlords have legal representation at courts, while only 1% of renters do. This is a huge gap in the system and just creates for more of an unfair and unjust system. And people try to fight, people try to educate themselves, but having that representation at court really, really makes the world of a difference of being able to have more time to find some more housing, stabilize yourself, or stay in your home. And currently, right now at the City of Phoenix, there is a pilot program, but it's not at the capacity that it needs to be, and it's not accessing the people that it needs to access at the level that evictions exist here in Maricopa County. And a right to counsel program can just really make the world of a difference for someone to make sure to stay in their homes. We can move on to the next slide, where this video kind of explains more of how the eviction court system looks in Maricopa County. We've done some eviction court watch. Some of the volunteers and leaders here in the chat have attended some. It is a very scary, fearful process. So if any of y'all, are triggered by any means, feel free to, turn your video off or walk away for a bit while we play this video. But I'll let y'all hear a little bit more about how they work here in Maricopa County.
Arizona's eviction laws are designed for speed. Last year, in Maricopa County alone, there were more than 42,000 eviction judgments issued. That's one for every 14 of our rental households, and a rate nearly 7 times that as in New York City, which has a notoriously expensive rental market. Under the Arizona Landlord-Tenant Act, a tenant who misses rent on the 1st could be evicted as soon as the middle of the month. Here's how that process works in Maricopa County. If you miss rent, your landlord can send you a 5-day notice. Just like it sounds, it gives you 5 days to pay up before the landlord can file for eviction. After those 5 days, the landlord can file an eviction lawsuit. Most wait a few extra days, giving you a little bit of extra time to pay, but if that money doesn't come, the process can move into the justice courts. Shortly after that lawsuit's filed, you'll get a court date. An official notice will come and it'll tell you when and which court to show up at. Most people don't bother coming. They lose by default. But even if you do show up, odds are still that you'll probably lose. You can pay what you owe, but now late fees and court costs have been tacked on. Those can be hundreds of dollars. But if you pay them, the eviction process ends. If not, you'll sit and you'll wait as the judge calls as many as 100 cases an hour until the judge finally calls your name. Then you walk up to the bench. Your landlord will probably have a lawyer. You probably won't. But you can try to explain your case. Simply not being able to afford that month's rent is not a legal defense. But if the judge thinks you have a good defense, you might get a trial date. That's usually a couple days later. If not, you'll walk out with an eviction on your record and 5 days to move out. From start to finish, that whole process can take as little as 2 weeks.
Thank you. That video is just crazy to hear. I think just letting it sit with you, how the video said, like, even if you show up, even though a lot of people don't show up to court because they don't know what they need to do, what they need to bring, even if you do show up, there's a big chance that you will lose because you don't have the representation, you don't have the person there understanding what's happening in the due process. And I feel like that video really demonstrates and, paints a picture of how fast these eviction trials and eviction courts are. Judges themselves are elected into these positions. They're not, versed in the law themselves, and oftentimes look for advice from the landlord's attorney, which just continues to demonstrate the unfairness in these trials, and just further demonstrating how a right to counsel program could keep hundreds of families in their homes, whether it's finding a new home and giving you more time to find a new home, or finding any way to stay in yours and finding a good argument to stay in yours. And we recognize this, and we've been doing we can go to the next slide. And
Arizona's
we've done
eviction
a lot
laws are
of
designed
we've done a lot of work with our staff, our community members, our leaders. So to give you a little bit of a background on how this has been progressing with the Take Back Our Homes campaign. Last year in 2023, we started these conversations about, making sure that legal representation is given to people going through eviction court, showing up at city council, passing fair housing laws, and starting those conversations with council members at the city of Phoenix. However, it wasn't until the beginning of this year in January that Councilwoman Ansari, who has now stepped down from her seat, called for a right to counsel program. Sorry about that, because the program that currently exists in Phoenix was being allotted more money, but she was pushing for the city to do more. And from there, we had a lot of conversations with council members, bringing our community members in, hearing from y'all, listening to your stories. We kind of created an eviction defense network, meaning, trying to offer resources to folks we've encountered who were facing evictions. We were able to help a lot of folks, understand what was happening by giving these tenant know your right workshops. And specifically, we had a member that we were able to get representation from Community Legal Services. I know some of y'all on this call showed up to their eviction court hearing, but that was a kind of eye-opener, seeing how we were working with her the whole time, but making sure that she was connected with an attorney gave her, I believe, like almost 2 more months rather than just a couple days to find housing. And from all those conversations, we landed at a subcommittee, the housing subcommittee at the city of Phoenix, where you see here, she's not here today, but our field organizer, Evelyn, speaking, and a lot of you here on the call shared your story, called for a right to counsel, called for legal representation for evictions for our city council. And that made a really big difference, because now council is kind of they are agreeing, they're wanting to do something about it. They're looking to find funding to source a study to prove how much this will impact the city in a positive way and make that argument stronger of having a right to counsel program in Phoenix. And now we just continue to work on our advocacy work, educating you all like you all here today, continuing these education workshops and advocating at the city council. We have a upcoming council meeting that we're attending on the 21st of May that I believe we'll touch on more towards the end of the presentation. But I encourage you all to attend to really speak your mind and, share a little bit about your story and what you've learned today. But I'll pass it to Sebastian to kind of settle us down and have us envision what we want to see, because we can decide what this looks for us, and this can be shaped by us for us.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And thank you to everyone who has really pushed to get us to this point. I see your hand is raised, Angela. I think we have time for a question. Okay. Should we save it for the end? I think we'll have time for a Q&A.
Yeah,
Great,
at
awesome.
the end, we'll definitely have some time at the end for some questions and answers. So write those questions down, and then we'll get to them.
I'll roll through then. So we're gonna do a bit of a visioning exercise as a group. And what we just reviewed was a lot. That video was a lot. And we have a lot of ahead of us. So just want to take a moment to take a breath. I'll introduce myself again. My name is Sebastian. I'm the campaign manager for the Take Back Our Homes campaign. And I'm a staff here at Organized Power in Numbers. Now that we've already talked about the history so beautifully, as Ms. Catherine laid out for us, of the state of housing in Maricopa County, let's take a minute to really reflect on our own experience. So I want everyone on the call, in your room, to take a minute and just close your eyes. Try to put some intention into this and I guess follow my voice. So I want everyone with your eyes closed, open, to visualize what everyday life is like for you in our society today. So it's a new day and your alarm just went off. How are you feeling most mornings? You make your way out of the house. What does your neighborhood look like to you? Do you feel unsafe or do you feel safe? Do you feel in community or are you feeling a little bit disconnected? Maybe today you're heading off to work. When you're at work, how are you feeling? How is it like at work for you? What are your working conditions like? Are you well paid or could you be paid enough? If you get sick at work, are you going to be able to take sick time or are you worried you won't? Will you be able to go to the doctor if you get sick? Are you feeling really secure in your job or are you worried about possibly being fired or laid off? Do you work just the one job or are you working multiple of them? Or let's say maybe you actually had the day off. On your day off, can you relax and just chill? Or do you have more things to do? Do you have enough money to do the things that you want to do or need to do? Okay. So now you're finally home from your day, working, running around, doing errands, or maybe at the park. What does it feel like to come to your home? Can you relax now, or is there more to do? What does your home look like for you? Are you worried about making rent or not, hopefully? When you lay down in your own bed, what's on your mind? Are there worries about bills? Or are you actually able to lay down on your pillow and rest for the night? How are you feeling about tomorrow? So let's come back into right now. You can open your eyes now. Thank you so much for participating in that with me. Let's go to the next slide, please. So again, thank you for participating and being intentional with me in that exercise. For the next part of this exercise, we're going to take 2 minutes to share 2 or 3 words that capture what you were just feeling when we were doing the visioning activity, what you were feeling your life is like in our economy and our current housing system today. The answers through this little tool that we're going to use are anonymous, but we'll be able to sort of see them on the screen, kind of like the creative, leader, bold, fast, those words. And it's a really cool little tool. So to use this tool with your cell phone, you can scan the QR code that's on the screen and you can submit up to 3 words, and that's going to upload to this little word cloud that we have in front of us. Take some time to send in your words. If you can't, use the QR code. We're dropping a link right now to the same little tool. So when you click the link, you'll be able to populate the little tool, and it should look like this. I'm going to do it as well. Let's see. And it's called Mentimeter. So if it says something like Mentimeter, then you're there. So yeah. It should come up on your phone and it should look something like, I don't know if you can see it, like this. Yes. And it'll have the 3 places to submit what you're feeling. So again, the question is, how do you feel living in the current economy and housing system. Okay, I see folks are submitting some things ripped off. I feel that. Worried, unsafe, scared. I see constant anxiety. I resonate with that one. Victimized, pained, see exhausted, uncertain, combative, worried, scared. Scared is the biggest one so far. Okay, looks like most of us have submitted. So yeah, those are some pretty strong feelings and some pretty negative feelings when we're thinking about how we're feeling right now in our society. And so this exercise is actually 2 parts. So now we're gonna do the same process again, but instead of sharing your frustrations about how you're feeling on a day-to-day, let's move on to our next question. And this should update again in the little app. It should populate. If not, just reload. But the question now, and why this is a visioning activity, is how do we want to feel every day when we wake up, when we go to work, when we're at home? How do you want to feel? How should we be feeling in a system that would actually work for us? So take another minute to submit those answers. And then I'm actually gonna call on you, Angela, to read off the words that we're seeing once you submit your answers, just so it's not just me talking. And I would love to hear your beautiful voice.
Safe, thriving, secured, healthy, energized, not marginalized, productive in society, at peace, appreciated, victorious, effective, good, confident, safer, healthy, protected, loving, seen, invested in, safe, inspired.
Thank you so much, Angela, for reading those. And I see the biggest antithesis to scared, which was also in blue, and that is feeling safe. Thank you so much. Thank you, Angela, for reading those words. You have a beautiful voice, and thank you everyone for participating. I know this was an activity that might have brought up a lot of feelings, as we saw, but we're gonna try and disseminate our energy and calm ourselves as well. This is very important to do if we are to have a movement that is sustainable and long term. We have to take care of each other. So I'm gonna pass it to Trinity again to lead us into a breathing exercise, and then we're gonna close out the workshop.
Thank you, Sebastian, for that really awesome activity. Definitely a lot came up, and maybe I have more questions, or maybe I have more answers. Not sure, but definitely a lot came up for me, and I'm sure that is the same for all of you or some of you. So if you feel comfortable, or if you're in a place to close your eyes or lower your gaze once more, feel free to hop off camera, hop on camera. Really take this moment to take care of yourself. If you're in a car, if you're driving, if you're cooking, I encourage you, if you can, to take a pause. If you're in the house doing some things, shake your hands out a little bit. You can unclench your jaw. Maybe you grind your teeth at night and you just hold all that trauma in your jaw. We're gonna take a couple collective deep breaths together, and then I'm gonna give you an opportunity to listen to your own body and do it on your own pace. But we'll go, when I say inhale, we'll all inhale together, and when I say exhale, we'll all exhale together. Go ahead and take your first inhale. Hold and exhale. Try to really let your belly and your chest fill up with air. And on that exhale, make sure to just deflate and let your shoulders relax into it. Let your jaw relax into it. Maybe you need to sway your neck side to side a little bit. Let's take our second inhale. Go ahead. And exhale. Go ahead and go on your own pace a little bit. I'll be guiding us through some sound healing. We're gonna take our third inhale together. And for this next one, I'm gonna invite you all to rub your hands together, get them nice and warm. Keep your eyes closed or your gaze lowered if you feel called to. Get your hands nice and warm. And as we're thinking about places that might be holding some tension, might be holding some trauma, for me, that is most definitely my neck, my upper back. So I'm gonna count down from 3, and after 1, I'm going to ask y'all to place your hands on that part of your body. 3, 2, 1. Take your inhale. And exhale. Really let yourself be. Take a couple more breaths at your own pace. With me here, I have some eucalyptus and spearmint spray. I'm gonna spray it in y'all's direction. I hope you're catching the vibes wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Let's take one last inhale together. And when we exhale, we're gonna let out, maybe that's a roar, maybe it's a loud roar. Maybe you're screaming, you feel rage. I want you and give you all the permission to feel that rage, all the permission to feel those emotions that are going through your body. If you're feeling hope for the world, I call on you to hold on to that hope and bring it in with you. So we're gonna take our inhale. Feel free to unmute too if you all just wanna just let it out. Go ahead and take your inhale. And exhale. If your eyes are closed, feel free to open them. Go your own pace. I encourage you all to continue being present with your own bodies. These conversations are going to continue to happen outside of this Zoom space. Yes, I see that, that tissue, get it nice and loose. Yes, these conversations are going to continue to happen outside the space. And unfortunately, this is just the reality for so many of us. And it takes a lot to be able to even be present. Maybe while you were doing the activity, you felt maybe you don't have time to be present. So really it just takes 5-10 minutes of your time to really allow yourself and give yourself that permission to feel all the things, feel all the rage, and take a breath. Thank you all for being present.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Trinity. That was really needed. I think we talked about some pretty heavy topics, and so we always have to remember to take care of ourselves first. And I want to finish us off in our presentation with a call to action. And so we talked about basically like all of the issues in the system, and there's so many more around housing, but something we're fighting for is right to counsel. And so we want to ask folks to join us and Poder in Action on May 21st at Phoenix City Council Chambers, where they will be proposing a final proposal of the city budget for next year, 2024, or part of this year and next year, 2024 and 2025. And we need the city council to include secure funding for legal representation for tenants. And so we want to ask folks to join us on May 21st. My colleague Yareli is going to drop the link into the chat where you can sign up and find information on this. And we can also make sure to connect with folks who are wanting to get involved with our campaign, to loop you in on what's going on and let you know when we have actions in the future. And so I also added on the screen where you can join our Facebook group to stay up to date. But I think just all the heavy topics we talked today, it's really easy to feel a little bit like angry and hopeless, but we have to channel all that energy into fighting, because these things are not going to be just given to us. We have to fight for them. Anything that's ever been won in history was because of a fight. And so thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. We do have 15 minutes left, and so we will now open it up to questions that folks might have. And I'm going to lean on Sebastian as well to support in answering some of those questions. And so I see Angela has a hand up. Feel free to put your hand up so that we know who's on queue for questions, or also drop them into the chat. Awesome. Okay, I'll pass it over to you, Angela.
Thank you. I'll try to be as brief as possible. So as I take a look at this housing crisis, I see it to be a twofold problem. So I know we're, feet on the ground, we're out here advocating, teaching people how to advocate against landlords, right? So I can teach you how to respond, how to serve them with safe and health violations, but it doesn't make a difference, because once we are evicted and we step into the court of eviction proceedings, we lose, right? So we know one of the major battles is in the courtroom, right? I feel the need to dismantle the court system, right? Remove all the judges who are time for reinstatement. We can vote them out, right? So that's one fold. The other fold is, why does the problem really exist? The problem really exists because we have outside migration that's coming in who can afford this new housing rates, right? So the migrations from out of state are coming in, affording the new dwellings and pushing Arizonans out, displacing us to homelessness. So I would like to see a campaign added to our campaign, a campaign of transparency. Let's be clear, right? I think we need to start having open discussion, public discussions with our experience as Arizonans who's been displaced from the migration, right? It needs to be known that this migration is affecting us and it's ugly. As it's a wonderful experience for you because you think it's affordable, but it's not the old affordable Arizona from 10 years ago. It's the new affordable Arizona that's only affordable to migrants moving in. So I think we need to start making it clear whether we do reels on Facebook, whether I fly in some filmmakers from Atlanta and we start doing some commercials and things like that so that these migrants know what they are doing to us and how we feel. We're not putting an attack on them. We just need our United States to know that this is what's happening to us. So the migration from California, Colorado, New York, Chicago, it is affecting us and causing us to become homeless. So no one knows, only the Arizonans know. We only know the truth. Even the migrants don't know the truth. They don't see it because our leaders are welcoming them. They welcome this migration that is hurting us. So I'm ready now to sharpen my tools up as a public service announcer, as a public speaker, as an interviewer, as a grassroots media influencer. Let's get out there and start sharing our transparent story so the migrants know what they're doing to us and how they're changing the economy and displacing us into homelessness. I was born in District 7, 85040. Actually, I think that part of my community is District 8. So my birth certificate says 85040, and I'm ready to defend and tell the truth with transparency.
Thank you so much, Angela. And yeah, folks being displaced, some of our committee members from the year before in 2023 have actually had to move out of the state because they couldn't no longer afford to live here. But I also want to make that differentiation of like migrants I hear you referring to people with really high incomes who are paying way higher rents and displacing local working class people. So I saw Miguel put migration is not the problem. I think the migration is not the problem. I think who the doors are being opened to, right? People with capital, people with money, the echelons of the class, right? That is the selling off of our land and our home and our way of life to people who can buy it, right? So again, the commodifying of home. And I feel like Earth is our planet, it is all of us, but definitely staying rooted in that we're all working class people, and all people deserve to be able to live anywhere they choose to raise their families. So just a little bit of a differentiation on the migration word, but I totally agree with what you're laying down. We cannot keep selling off our communities.
Perfect summary. You summarized that well. Thank you.
Awesome. And I just wanted to add on to that too, is like people from California are moving to Arizona, to Texas. I have family in Texas who are constantly meeting more people from California. And it's because there is a national trend of this housing crisis. On a national scale, the US has like historical record of homelessness, and it's because rent keeps getting higher and higher. And so it's not just something Arizona's dealing with. Maybe folks move here because they believe it's cheaper, but it's like, well, maybe, in the state you're coming from, the housing needs to be addressed as well, right? So that people are not moving across lines or being forced to move, right? And so yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. Definitely. I think there was another question in the chat, and so I'm gonna go back to it. I saw Kathy Green said, is Right to Counsel essentially a city versus a state campaign? And I think Sebastian answered that question. Currently, we are trying to fight for right to counsel at in the city level in Phoenix. There's no state money going towards eviction defense at all, and that is part of the fight as well. That's part of the ongoing fight. Yeah. Awesome. And so does anyone else have questions? Go ahead and come off mute and ask your question, and we'll answer it the best we can.
Mute,
Hello.
Muted, mute, currently unmuted, Alt plus A button.
Hello.
Hi, Dolores.
Oh, I really don't know how to participate very much because I have been not literate in the mechanical things, and but I just wanted to say thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm very excited about the whole thing. And I just think it's just going to be such a wonderful thing. I'm losing my eyesight, so I'm completely blind in one eye and kind of blind in the other eye. But I just turned 80, and I'm very excited because I must return to my home, which is in California. And I tell you what, don't believe everything you hear about California, because it's just like any place else. If it's your home, you're gonna love it because there's things for you to love. And I thank you so much. I look forward to being part of the group and not getting in the way.
Never that, never that. Thank you so much, Dolores.
Try to get out of the way.
No, no need to do that. We want you here and we want you to be involved. So thank you so much for joining, and I'm glad you enjoyed the presentation. Awesome. So I want to just open the floor. Any other questions? If not, we can close there.
Muted, Alt plus A button.
I actually do have a question. I'm not sure who might have the answer if there is one, but I'm wondering, like, thinking of gentrification being like one of the main causes of displacement. I'm wondering, has anyone heard of there being some type of committee where community members are involved in like the decision making as to what buildings are where, or what, those types of like needs are? Is there a committee where community can have input? Would that be city council? Does this type of thing not exist? Oh, curious to know if anyone, maybe you live in a different city than me, but has this type of thing.
I've spoken to some real estate developers. One was very wealthy, and I think a lot of those type of decisions happen at the zoning level. So that's how he made all his money. He just basically took things that were not zoned for housing and over like the course of like 12 years or so on a piece of land, convinced the city council to zone them. So yeah, a lot of at least some of those kind of things happen at that level, the city council level, within their zoning boards and their hearings on various projects and stuff, which I've been to those meetings and nobody but developers ever really attends them.
I would also say that there's village planning committees across the city of Phoenix, which are made up of just residents of the city. But those tend to be made up of residents who are like part of neighborhood associations and just property owning. So then what they push for is often like not in my backyard behavior. So if it's like a shelter or like positive things that need to be built in the community, oftentimes like these committees are actually like a counter to affordable development. And that kind of happens all across the country, which is the cultural reason why more affordable housing isn't being built. So unfortunately, that is something that's happening. I don't know of any committees that are like guiding like positive things beyond like the grassroots groups, like anything official. But I do know, like when communities get together, you can structure something called a community land trust. So community land trusts have been built all over the country and are like people ruled like developments. So that is a solution I know of. You've probably heard about it already, Ben.
Also, there is a success story in Arizona of someone doing that. It's the city of Guadalupe. So they were Mexican immigrants from like central Mexico, and they were getting gentrified out, and they spoke to an attorney, and he said they basically had to form like their own city, but that would require them to build like a police station and a fire department. And all their property is like right across from like this what's called the Mill Avenue Mall, which is like this huge like mall. So it's like really premium real estate. But they successfully did it. There's one academic study. I actually studied with another group how they pull it off, and so but they were able to successfully stop the gentrification by forming their own municipality, and they're still there. But it's not like it's like indigenous Mexicans and then just normal Mexican immigrants and like a mix, and they have like a really strong like culture, and like their yearly Catholic. They have some kind of Catholic festival, and it's this huge draw, but it's all entirely primarily because they were able to stop their own town from being gentrified.
Well said, Victor. I was just there for Easter. They had a big festival. They have found funding and they are lifting up their community. A huge facelift is taking place. Much pride in that. And it's a small radius. Much pride in that community.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell, like, just if you ever get a chance, even on Google Maps, you can tell that it's not supposed to be there because, like, there's like a high-end like strip club right next to it, as well as the Mill Avenue Mall. So everything around it is like super built up and modern, and it's just like a little, almost like a village-looking style like neighborhood. It's not like a tract home style place. Some of the roads are still dirt road, and it's like right in like the heart of like South. Is that South Phoenix or West Phoenix?
It's next to Tempe.
Is it in Tempe? Okay, well,
It's next to yeah. My cousin's backyard touches Guadalupe. She's on Hardy and Guadalupe.
Okay, it's in a central location.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing knowledge here at the end. I do want to close this out now that it's 7:30. We've been on this presentation on this call for an hour and a half, so I don't want to take more of people's evenings. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to all our presenters as well for being amazing leaders and doing such a good job. And so with that, good night, everyone. Stay involved. Make sure that you sign up to join us in Phoenix City Council chambers on May 21st.